Good evening, Deborah Watkins, aka Auntie Deb, author of the book From Mediocre to Marvelous, Get Out of Your Rut and Live a Fulfilled Life. Also, I am a certified Christian life coach. How is everyone doing? This is like the second week of January. Therefore, we are still working on those resolutions. We working out, eating right. We're not spending all of the things that we said we're going to do. And then when January 31st rolls around, you act like you ain't never made a resolution in your life. But we're not doing that in 2026. Remember, my last talk, I said, I want you to find your passion. I want you to set goals because it's good to set goals, but they have to be sustainable. Also, you may need someone to help you along the way and give you a little push in that area. And that's where maybe perhaps I could come in. Now, I do this series of talks from my book on personal power. And the reason why I do these talks is because motivating people, trying to push people is my passion. That's what I love to do. Remember last time I talked, I said if you're working out of your passion, it'll never feel like work, right? I love doing this. I love doing what I do. And I'm the type of person that I want to see everybody else have that same feeling. I want to see everybody else get to where they want to get to in life. And so if you tell me that it's something that you want to do, I am the type of person that's like, yes, rah, 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 let's do it. Okay, come on now, come on. Let's get to the finish line. That's who I am. So that's why I do these series of talks. Now, in the chapter on personal power, I refer to one of the personal powers is courage. Courage. And I talk about courage because you're going to need it. You're going to need it. It is not easy to stand out from the crowd. And most individuals want you to conform to the norm, either in your family or in organizations. And there's nothing wrong with conforming to the norms because, especially in organizations where you work, there is a cultural norm. However, once you discover your calling and you're seeking ways to satisfy that craving to operate in it, most of the time, it involves stepping outside of the group. And you may get the support from your peers or in your family, or you may get ridiculed. Whichever way it turns out, you have to be prepared for it. So be prepared to be called names, possibly like, she crazy, I don't know what this girl doing, he done lost his mind. Okay, those type of references, right? But you just disarm them and say, yes, I am crazy, and yes, I have lost my mind, all right? Just disarm them, that's all. Last Sunday, I was listening to the pastor of Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia. And I cannot think of his name right now to save my soul, okay? To save my soul. I can't think of the pastor's name. But he's a very popular pastor in Alexandria, Virginia, Alfred Street Baptist Church. And he talked about fear last Sunday. And he was saying, I don't even know if it was last Sunday. It was somebody sent me the sermon. I don't know what Sunday it was. But it was about fear and letting go. Okay, letting go. And it was in 2026. And what he said, which I thought was so interesting, was that in the Bible, there's 375 references to fear. 375 references to fear in the Bible. He said there's 247 references to faith in the Bible. And then he says that the Lord says in the Bible 364 times, do not be afraid. Now, for those of us in the Christian community, you know, we're very familiar with the verse 2 Timothy 1:7, for the Lord has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. You know, we use that one to death. And then there's Philippians 4:6-7. He says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So that's another popular one that we've heard these verses over and over again, but yet and still, if we're being honest, we will be afraid at times, you know, if we're being honest. Now, there's nothing wrong with healthy fear, right? There is some fear that is healthy. You should be afraid to walk out, step off the sidewalk before looking both ways, right? That's healthy fear. You probably still should be afraid to jump out of an airplane, okay, even though you have a parachute, because the parachute may not open. That's high risk. That's high risk, right? So I can understand you being fearful. And you may want to be fearful depending on where you're at in life, right? Because if you're a parent and you have some young children that you have to raise, that's a healthy fear. Now me, who don't have any more babies, I may take a chance on jumping out, you know, of an airplane one day. Now, another healthy fear is people coughing everywhere, right? And you're like, let me wear this mask because, you know, we had an epidemic in this country and people died, right? I had 2 family members that passed away of COVID. So that's healthy fear. But the fear that's not healthy is the fear that holds you and strangles you and keeps you from fulfilling your God-given purpose in this life. And a lot of times, sometimes it's because of upbringing and people, you know, things that were said to you and that were poured into you and that type of thing. And so if that's the case, then you need healing. You're going to need healing in those areas. You're probably going to need therapy. You're going to need healing. You know, those are the deeper things. But sometimes it's just the crowd, right? You just around the wrong crowd. You're not in the right place, because people sometimes will put fear on you because it's something that they have an issue with. You know, it's not you. And I remember when I took the African ancestry DNA test, and I found out that I belonged to, or my maternal side, the DNA was found in Guinea-Bissau, West Africa. This little tiny West African country, but it was a part of the slave trade. Like most of those West African countries were part of this transatlantic slave trade. And so I found out that I belonged to the Balanta tribe. And so what happens is when you take the DNA test and you become a part of the private Facebook page, organizations who are over in these countries and they have hosts, they'll reach out and they'll say, hey, you know, if you want to come and tour the country, if you want to be a part of the organization, because we're over there doing work. We're doing missions work over there in those countries. Like the organization that I belong to, we built a well. Well, we didn't build the well, but we upgraded the well and made it solar in this village over in Guinea-Bissau, West Africa. So we're doing some work. Now, when I found out and they were having a tour, I was like, oh, I'm going, right? I'm going. I want to see where my people came from, where my peeps came from. And plus, I had never been to Africa, so that was on my bucket list. Well, my family was like, absolutely not. Like, who are you going with? And I was like, well, I'm not going with anybody. I'm going to meet people when I get over there. And they were like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, no, we met with the guy online. I'm not going blind. Like the host, he had this Zoom meeting for all of those of us who signed up and were interested. He had several Zoom meetings. And we met with him on there, and people had questions, and we had questions, and he answered them all, until he made us very comfortable. And then some of us reached out to each other, and we exchanged numbers, and it's like, yeah, you're going, yeah, okay, all right, well, I'll meet you there. And so I felt, very comfortable in going. And I mean, I was a little scared, a little leery. I was just like, oh, I don't know, But I was willing to step out on faith. Okay, I was willing to step out on faith. It wound up being an awesome experience. I found my tribe, and I found my, fellow Balanta cousins. And one of the beautiful experiences I had over there was there's slave castles in more countries. We know about the one in Ghana. That's the most popular one that people go to, and the door of no return. But there's one in Gambia, and there's one in Guinea-Bissau, because that was all a part of the transatlantic slave trade. And so it was a museum. There was a museum where we were at, and this was on the port. And in the museum, they had maps of the trade, and they had the maps showing them leaving from the port of Guinea-Bissau to Charleston, South Carolina. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, because my people, maternal side of my family, are from Sumter, South Carolina, which is about 45 minutes from Charleston, South Carolina. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is real. And I felt it at that point. I felt it because I was like, because up until that point, people have all types of stories and theories and whatever. And, now they're trying to erase our history altogether. But it became very real. So I said all of that to say that if I had listened to others about, no, don't go, they felt like, I don't know if I was going to be traded or something. I don't even want to say the word. But no. I was supposed to do that. And some of you are supposed to be doing some things. And I want you to do those things. And I want you to step out on faith. And I want you to fulfill your God-given purpose. That's why I do these talks. And that's why I want you to do what you're going to do. Now, as I end, I want to say to all of my subscribers, all 30-something of you, thank you. Now I want y'all to do me this one, okay? Do me this one. I want you to find one person and say, listen, support the sister. Subscribe to her channel. It's free. It's not going to cost you anything. Just go on YouTube, click her subscribe button, listen to a few of her talks. You may like them. And comment on them. Give her a like. Now, when I say the comment, like a lot of the comments I get are on Facebook. But I don't want the comments on Facebook. I want the comments on YouTube. Well, you can put the comments on Facebook. That's cool. But also do them on YouTube. So like and subscribe and give your comments on YouTube. And again, to my subscribers, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. All right, everyone, get back on that treadmill, okay? Get back on that treadmill. You working out until January 31st. All right, love y'all.